When was the last time you helped someone? We've got a true story from Jose, and we're going to speak about helping people on this week's episode of
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hello, if you're a new listener, welcome to the podcast. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with over 45 years of teaching English between us, we're going to help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you, Reza?
I'm a little bit better than the last episode. My throat is slowly healing, getting better. What about yours?
Well, as you can hear, my voice is still a little bit raspy, a bit croaky, like a frog. Rivet, rivet. But I am getting better and it feels okay. It just sounds a bit weird. So apologies for that. We have a voice message from Lulu from Cancun, Mexico.
Hello, Craig and Reza. My name is Lulu from Cancun, Mexico. I really enjoy your podcast. I listen to you every week and I recommend your podcast to my classmates at school because I consider your podcast a good way to improve our listening skills. Thank you for help us, and could you recommend to my boyfriend a French podcast? He is learning French and he wants something amazing like your podcast but in French. I really love to hear you every week. Bye bye.
Well, thank you, Lulu. It's lovely to hear you all the way from Mexico. And thank you very much for recommending our podcast to your classmates. Reza, any comments on Lulu's message?
Thank you very much, Lulu. That's very kind of you. Your message was very clear. However, there was a little tiny grammar error. Did you spot it, Craig?
Yes, just one thing. You said thank you for help us. Remember, Lulu, after every preposition in English, you must have a gerund when there's a verb. So thank you for helping us would be better. Do you study French, Reza? Do you listen to any podcasts that help you with your French?
Well, I study French on and off. It depends on how much time I've got.
Are you on at the moment or off?
I'm off at the moment, but I'm certainly not giving up on it. My timetable sometimes doesn't permit me to study as much as I would like, but I haven't given up yet. I haven't surrendered.
So when you're off and you're not studying formally, do you listen to French podcasts or any French TV or anything?
I do. I watch, what's it called? TV5 Monde or whatever it's called, the French TV, and also Arte, that cultural one. And I listen to a podcast which Craig recommended to me. So I'm going to recommend to you, Lulu.
Are you listening to that? Really?
I do from time to time. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Not regularly, but from time to time.
And do you like it?
I do. Yeah, it's very effective. Craig first told me about it, Lulu, for French. It's radiolingua.com or maybe radiolingua.com/coffee break French. I'll repeat that. radiolingua.com/coffee break French.
And Lulu, your boyfriend can find that link to that webpage and download the podcast or listen to the podcast by going to our show notes for this episode, which are at inglespodcast.com/202. There's also a webpage that I found using Google with 10 awesome French podcasts. So there are 10 more recommended podcasts at fluentu.com. Again, go to the show notes on our webpage to find the link for that address.
Craig, we have an email from Jose. Shall I read it out?
Yes.
Here we go. My name is Jose, and I've been listening to your podcast for a few months. I reckon it's really worth listening to, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jose. I'd like to raise a couple of questions that I often get mixed up with. First, I understand that it's optional to use a noun as an adjective, but is that true in all cases? For instance, my car key or the key of my car, a hotel room or the room of the hotel, etc. I tend to use the noun as an adjective because it sounds more authentic, but sometimes it doesn't seem to be right, and I still don't know if it's optional. Please help me. Lastly, it also seems to be optional to use get or a reflexive pronoun in cases such as get injured or injure oneself. Is that right? Thank you very much in advance, and all the best to you and Reza.
Well, thank you for your email. Let's look at Jose's first question. It is quite common in English to use the noun as an adjective in what we call compound nouns. So the ball you play tennis with is a tennis ball. A story about love is a love story. Other examples, football boots, bicycle shop, ticket office, horse race. It's very, very common. If you'd like to know more about compound nouns, go and listen to episode 138, Jose, where we go into compound nouns very deeply and give many examples. That's inglespodcast.com/138. But Reza, is it always the case that it's right? You see, because Jose hasn't really given any examples of times when it does not seem right to make a compound noun.
I would say that generally speaking, we do use the noun as an adjective, like car key instead of key of my car. But it's not a strict rule, but as a kind of guide, if both words are equally important, then we often do tend to say something of something.
One example that comes to mind is there's a shop which is a chain store in the UK, una cadena de tiendas, called World of Leather. If you say Leather World, you can say Leather World, but World of Leather has a slightly different meaning. It's more involving. It seems to be more encompassing. Do you agree?
Yeah, exactly.
So his world of something, that might be an example when you would choose to use the of.
Yep.
And not make a compound noun.
Exactly, because you're stressing the fact that it's a whole world. It's a giant place. There's an incredible selection. It's a world. And leather, leather's what they sell. That's important. So World of Leather. Whereas if I just said leather world, the word world doesn't get so much stress there. It's just the fact that it's leather. But the fact that it's a whole big world gets lost. Whereas if I put World of Leather, both words get a lot of stress. What do you think?
My dad used to say to me, "Don't do that, Craig, or you will be in a world of pain."
Exactly.
That will be an example of not using a compound noun because you will be in a pain world. Doesn't sound right.
That doesn't sound good, no. It sounds more dramatic using of, doesn't it, on the whole? Just making it a bit longer sounds a bit more dramatic.
Perhaps, Jose, if you come across or if you can think of any compound nouns that sound incorrect or strange to you, then send them to us and we'll tell you if we think a native speaker would use it or they would put the of and change the order. So it's very difficult for us to know which ones you don't think would work unless you send us some specific examples. What about Jose's second question, using get or a reflexive pronoun? His example was to get injured or to injure oneself. It's not the same thing.
No, although here they could be interchanged, it's true, but not always. For example, to get married is certainly not the same as to marry oneself, is it?
No.
You can't marry yourself.
And if you injure yourself, maybe you have a knife and you're cutting some onions and you cut your finger. You injure yourself. You did it. But if you're in a car accident, maybe you get injured, but you didn't do it to you. You didn't do it to yourself. So having it reflexive, when it's reflexive, it's not the same meaning in some situations.
Yeah, it might be, but just depending on the situation.
And it can have a completely different meaning. If you get better, you recover. Like I'm getting better from my cough, or I had a cold, but now I'm getting better. To better yourself is to improve. I want to learn something new. I want to better myself.
Right. So we hope, Jose, that we've answered both of your questions as best we can. We're sorry that for the first question, there's no clear 100% rule, but we hope that our guide has helped you.
And please send us some specific examples and we'll try to help you further in a future podcast.
Greg, we have more feedback from another Jose, but this time, Jose we already know about. Do you remember Jose Molina?
I do. Jose Molina was the guy from Valencia who sent us the true story of the time when he fell in a water channel and nearly drowned, nearly killed himself. That was back in episode 159. So if you want to listen to Jose's true story about his childhood, go back to inglespodcast.com/159. But he sent us another story. Reza, would you like to read his email?
Jose Molina writes, "Hello, Craig and Reza. I'm enjoying your weekly podcast and I'm improving my English very much with you. So I want to participate in your podcast, although I sent you some months ago another podcast with my true story. Do you remember?
Yep.
I fell in a channel and I nearly died. I nearly drowned in the water. I do remember." Well, Jose has sent us a story about his good deed.
What's a good deed?
A deed, that's D-E-E-D. A deed is a thing that you do, an action or an act. A good deed. For example, there's an old saying in English which goes, one good deed deserves another.
So if you do someone una buena acción, if you do something good for someone, then someone would do something good for you. Is that what it means?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So Jose's story is about a good deed. So before we listen to Jose's story, it might be useful if we explain a little bit of vocabulary for you, which you're going to hear in the story. As we said earlier, a good deed is una buena acción, something good that somebody does for another person. To stumble, you're going to hear in the story as well. To stumble is when you're walking and you seem like you're going to fall over. So it's tropezarse in Spanish, to stumble.
And there are two phrasal verbs that you could use with the word stumble. You can stumble over something. So imagine there's something on the floor in your room and you stumble over it. You don't see it and you almost fall. You don't fall, but you almost fall. You can also stumble along. Imagine you've had 10 pints of Guinness in the pub and you come out to the pub and you walk home. You're probably going to be stumbling along, which means not walking very safely, not walking normally, walking very unsteadily, very dangerously.
You're probably walking along the pavement or sidewalk in American English, la acera. So you might stumble on the pavement or sidewalk. And if you're unlucky, you might stumble and then fall over or fall down, caerse, fall onto the ground, fall over or fall down.
And both of those phrasal verbs are very similar. You can fall over in the street, you can fall down in the street, but when they collocate, they can have slightly different meanings. You can fall over a chair, for example. There's a chair in the room, you don't see it, you fall over it. So you fall over something. Or you can fall down the stairs. So down, hacia abajo, you fall down the stairs. Fall over something, fall down the stairs. Another word that Jose mentions is eyebrow, E-Y-E-B-R-O-W, which is ceja in Spanish. Somebody falls over and hurts their eyebrow.
And he's also used the word handkerchief, pañuelo. We mean the old-fashioned type made out of material like cotton or maybe silk, handkerchief.
So let's listen to Jose's good deed.
I want to read you something that happened yesterday. I was crossing a big avenue in Valencia that you will know for sure, called Peris y Valero Avenue, when in front of me was walking the only person was crossing to the same traffic light. She was an elderly woman walking faster than me. When she arrived at the pavement, she stumbled and fell over. I ran toward her and I helped her to stand up. She got an injury in the eyebrow that it was bleeding. Then I told her, "Don't worry, ma'am. I'm going to call the municipal police. They will arrive quickly and they will take you to the hospital." She was drying the blood that it was going out from her eyebrow with a handkerchief and told me, "Thanks, sir, but it's not necessary. I will take the bus in this bus stop and I will go to my city. Then I will go to the local clinic where they will cure this small injury. I promise you." I could see in her clothes that she could be a woman with not much money. Then I added, "You don't be worried for anything. The police will take you to the hospital for free, and the hospital will cure the injury for free too." At this moment, the woman took my hand and, looking at me in a very warm way, told me, "Please, don't call the police. Let me go to my home. I'm fine, thank you." I understood that the woman didn't want to have nothing to do with the police. Then I accompanied her to the bus stop and I was talking with her some minutes until the bus arrived. This was my good daily action. Thank you and bye-bye.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Jose, for sending in your story. We enjoyed listening to it. Any comments, Reza?
Thanks, Jose. And that was a nice story, and it was very clear. I understood everything. Did you?
Yeah, me too. And it happened not very far from your flat.
Yes, you're quite right, Jose, when you say that we know that street for sure. It's about a 1.5 minute walk away from my house, so I know Avenida Pérez y Valero very well.
Have you ever fallen over near there?
I haven't, but if I do, I might call out for Jose.
Yeah, me too.
If I call out, if people see me in the ground going, Jose, they might know, it's the podcast guy. He's looking for help.
If you see Reza stumbling along Pérez y Valero, you might want to give him a hand.
And you might see me stumbling along after I have a pint or two of Guinness, in fact.
There are one or two things we'd like to comment on, Jose, so that you can improve your English a little bit. You said, for example, "In front of me was walking. The only person was crossing to the same traffic light." We can change the order of those words and improve it slightly by saying, "In front of me, another person was also crossing the road." In front of me, another person was also crossing the road. So we're going to give you 1 or 2 points like that you can improve on. And if you want to read them, they will be in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/202, together with the text that you sent us of your story. Anything else, Reza?
Yes, you said in your story these words, "She got an injury in the eyebrow that it was bleeding." That's not quite right. Maybe we could improve it this way. She had hurt or maybe cut or injured her eyebrow and it was bleeding. Because you can't say that and it together. You said she got an injury in the eyebrow, that, it. Well, if I say that was bleeding, that would be my subject. But if I say it was bleeding, well, it would be my subject. So you can't have two subjects in English. You can't say that it was bleeding or he was bleeding. You can only have one subject.
And that's a common mistake in Spanish, repeating the subject. So be careful. Another thing, you said she was drying the blood that it was going out from her eyebrow with a handkerchief. So the same mistake again, that it should not be together. To improve that sentence, you could say, she was drying her bleeding eyebrow with a handkerchief. So I'm using bleeding there as an adjective to describe the eyebrow. And you said the blood that was going out from her eyebrow. Yeah, you can say that the blood goes out of your body. You can say the blood goes out from a wound, una herida, but probably a more common word would be to pour out. If there is a lot of blood, you can use the verb to pour, which is echar, like you pour water or you pour wine into a glass. So you could say that the blood was pouring out of her eyebrow, or it was pouring with blood. So again, that sentence I suggested, she was drying her bleeding eyebrow with a handkerchief, or her eyebrow was pouring with blood.
Jose, another sentence that we might improve is this. I could see in her clothes that she could be a woman with no much money. I think we could improve that sentence for a couple of reasons. What about this? I could see from her clothes, not in, but from. I could see from her clothes that she wasn't a rich woman, or that she probably didn't have much money.
And also be careful of when to use no and when to use not. We recently did an episode about that. I think it was episode 197 or 198. It's on the webpage. So we clearly explain when to use no and when to use not. Another thing you said, you don't be worried for anything. Better to say, don't worry about anything. No te preocupes. Don't worry. Don't worry about anything.
Because it's an imperative, it's an order or an instruction. And in English with imperatives, you don't have a subject. You don't say I or you or he, just directly the verb. So positive, for example, stop. And negative, don't stop. So this is negative. Don't worry about anything. No subject, no you.
And one more, you said, I understand that the woman didn't want to have nothing to do with the police. Be careful of double negatives. If you have a negative, which is didn't, you can't have another negative like nothing. So you have to have a positive and a negative, or a negative and a positive. So a better sentence would be, I understood that the woman didn't want anything to do with the police. I understood that the woman didn't want anything to do with the police.
Or you could do it the other way, as Craig said, negative, positive, or positive, negative. You could say, I understand that the woman wanted nothing to do with the police is another possibility.
Absolutely.
Not two negatives, only one. One more thing, you ended, or near the end of your story, Jose, you said, it was my daily good action. As we explained earlier, a better way of saying that is, it was my good deed for the day. That's the typical collocation. Good deed for the day.
So again, thank you, Jose, for sending in your story. And if anyone wants to send us a similar story, please record it and send it to us. And we'll give you the address at the end of the podcast. We really do enjoy hearing your English and helping you to improve it. Reza, when was the last time you helped someone? Do you remember? Have you recently done anyone a favour or given someone a hand? Those are two ways of saying similar things. To do a favour or give someone a hand. Una mano.
Yes, a week or two ago, I helped an old woman who asked me to take her across the road.
Did she want to go across the road, or you just took her?
No, she wanted to go. I didn't take her against her will. No, she wanted to go. But she was a bit slow, and because she was a bit old, she wasn't quite sure when the traffic was going to come and when it was going to stop. So I slowly helped her across the road, and very kindly, people in their cars stopped because we needed a bit of extra time to get across the road, and they let us go across the road. So that was a nice act. What about you? When was the last time you gave a hand or lent a hand to someone?
Actually, it was yesterday evening. We had a problem here in the apartment block, in the flats where we live. Most people in Valencia, in most cities in Spain, live in a block of flats, and we had no water. The water in half of the building here was cut off. So I went down to the ground floor, below the ground floor, to the cellar, Cellar. How do you say cellar in Spanish? I can't remember.
Sótano, isn't it?
Sótano, yeah. So that's where the water taps are. And there was one of our neighbours trying to find the tap that was closed. And I helped him to see with my mobile phone. There was no light. I put the torch on the phone, and together we managed to find the right tap that had been closed. So I suppose that was helping someone to open the water valves.
Now, Craig, people say that it's truly great to help someone and not expect anything in return. But what do you think? Should we expect to be thanked when we help people?
Expect? No. But I must admit, I do get disappointed sometimes when I'm not thanked. I don't think we should have that expectation. But when I do a favour for someone, it actually happened quite recently, maybe a month and a half ago. I did a favour for a student who asked me to do something for him, and he didn't thank me. And I shouldn't really expect thanks for doing the favour, but I was a little upset, maybe a little disappointed when he didn't say anything. What do you think?
I agree with you, yeah. For me, it just is so obvious. It's second nature. That means I don't really have to think about it. Maybe my parents taught me when I was a child, but they taught me so well that it's automatic. It's second nature now, that if someone does something for you, you say thanks.
But is it maybe a cultural difference with us? Do Spanish people say thank you less than British people?
I think maybe they do. They say less thank you, but they say thank you less, I beg your pardon. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they feel less thanks. But they perhaps don't need to verbalize it. You know what I mean? They feel it, but you don't actually have to say it. Do you think that might be the case?
Possibly. But then I wonder why. If that's true, why would they not? Would they be embarrassed to have to say thank you?
Do you know what? I've often thought about this, Craig, and depending on the situation, some people are just rude and they should say thanks and they don't.
There's rude people everywhere, in every nationality, in every country.
You know, you can't excuse them. But I think in the case of friends or acquaintances, people who already knew each other before a situation happened when someone helped someone else, if you already knew each other, quite often in Spain, people won't say thanks in that situation because you are perhaps presuming to take advantage of your friendship. And I think sometimes Spanish people don't say thanks then because they don't want to seem distant. It's as if they said thanks, it would be unnecessarily formal. But since you're friends or since you're acquaintances, since you know each other, it's you don't need to bother to say
but
thanks.
I think that's a different situation. I think if you have a relationship or a close relationship, then the expectation's different. I'm thinking mainly, for example, when you open the door for somebody, or you let them cross the street, or you do something in public, or you offer a person your seat on the bus. In that situation, would you expect a thank you? And maybe if there are listeners who have lived in a Spanish-speaking country and also an English-speaking country, have you noticed any differences? And what's your opinion on the way people thank you in different situations? We'd be interested to hear that.
Craig, can I say something which will probably cause the podcast to lose thousands of listeners, get me into all sorts of trouble.
Here we go.
And I'll be assassinated virtually online.
You'll be pushed under a bus in Paris y Valero.
And no one will help me. Jose won't help me then.
Jose will push you.
You've been talking about cultural differences, and I totally agree with you, and I understand. Yes. What about this? In the Spanish-speaking world, I would distinguish between South Americans and Spanish people from Spain.
In what way?
I think, here goes,
Ooh.
I think people in South America say thanks more than people in Spain. I've done it now. Will Craig edit it out? Let's see.
Maybe.
But people in South America, in my experience, say thanks a bit more than Spanish people from Spain.
But sometimes it's not saying thanks, it's meaning it. Now, English people say thank you a lot. You go into a restaurant and the waiter gives you the salt or puts a knife on the table and the English person says thank you, whereas a Spanish person would not. But does the English person really mean thank you, or is it an automatic response to a situation? So I think it's important as well when you say thank you to actually mean it and not say it as a reaction.
Well, that's it. Yeah. And I think that we English speakers don't really mean thanks when someone leaves us the salt, because I expect a waiter to facilitate me with salt.
Exactly.
I would be annoyed if he didn't. So I'm saying thanks because that's the cultural expectation. And perhaps it's the same in South America. Perhaps in South American countries, it's expected that you say thanks for things which are to be expected. Whereas in Spain, perhaps culturally, you're not expected to say thanks for the obvious, but you're only expected to say thanks which are above and beyond, más allá, the obvious. Could it be that, maybe?
What do you think? Let's ask the listener. If you are from America Latina and you're living in Spain, or vice versa, you're from Spain and maybe living in Central or South America, what differences have you noticed in the thank you culture? We'd be very interested to know. Reza, do you believe in karma? Actually, we should explain what karma is. In Hinduism and Buddhism, the sum of la suma of a person's actions in this state of existence or a previous state of existence, viewed as deciding their fate in future existences. In other words, the way you behave now or have behaved in the past affects how you will exist in the future, which in an informal way really means good or bad luck as a result of your actions. If you act positively in a good way, then that comes around again and gives you good luck. If you behave negatively in a bad way, then you have a negative result of your actions. Do you believe that?
I'd like to be more specific than that. True karma, I do more or less believe in. I think that, yes, your future fate will partly be determined by your actions before that. However, to simplify it to good and bad luck, no. I think that there are unpleasant people who have good luck.
I can think of a few that I will not name.
Yeah, so it's a bit more complicated than that. There are people who, as we say in English, there's an old saying, some people have all the luck. And indeed they do. There are some people who just seem to be lucky. Some of those people are lovely. Some of them are not. They're just lucky.
There's another saying that says, only the good die young.
Yep.
Have you known any good people who have passed away early in life, and many very bad people who keep on living to an old age of prosperity?
Plenty of cases, yep, plenty. So I do believe in the strict traditional spiritual meaning of karma. Yes, I believe in that aspect, but I don't believe that good people have good luck and bad people have bad luck. No. What do you think?
No, I don't agree. I don't think either. I think that your actions don't affect what will happen in the future. I just think it's a good idea to be good because you feel better about yourself and you sleep better at night. I don't necessarily do good expecting or thinking that maybe it'll come back around to me again in the future. So I don't believe in karma in any of its forms.
Craig, I'm slightly changing the topic a bit, but it's related. How do you feel when, you've seen a car race up a narrow street far too fast? It's nearly knocked you over or somebody else, or maybe it's nearly knocked over the whole street, going far too fast. They don't care about other people's safety. They're just wanting to show off the car, or they're in a rush somewhere, and these people virtually kill you to get up the road. They don't seem to care. Then they go around the corner and you hear the screech of brakes and the car hits a brick wall or something like that. Do you think, yes, he deserves that? Or do you think, oh no, that's terrible, they've had an accident? What do you feel?
Actually, I know the situation, and I feel that I would like to have the superpower of Magneto from the X-Men. Do you know what superpower he has?
No.
He's the guy who can alter the behavior of metal. So if I had that superpower, I would be able to control the car. So I'm not going to say what I would do with the car, but you could play with the car in any way you wanted to and have the power over the idiot who goes too fast and drives too dangerously in a small street. So yeah, I get what you mean, and that would be nice to be able to control the metal of that person's car. 2 quick idioms connected to this subject. Have you heard this idiom, Reza? One good turn deserves another, or one good deed deserves another. We've looked at the word deed meaning action, and in this context, turn, T-U-R-N, also means action. To do a good turn, to do somebody a good turn means to do them a favour, to do something nice for them. So do you believe that one good turn deserves another?
I do believe it. And yes, I know the expression. It's a very commonly used expression. And I believe it's just generally good advice. And I believe it's the logical and sensible thing to do. It's plain stupid not to return a favour.
No, I don't agree with it though. I don't think a good deed does deserve another.
Well,
I think a good deed should be done because it's a good deed, not because it deserves another good deed.
Well, I'm not saying that you should immediately repay the person who has done a good turn for you. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if you have the opportunity in the future, yes, it would be nice to do it.
Okay.
You shouldn't forget that person has been good to you. That's what I'm saying. But I'm not saying you have to repay them. But it's nice when you get the chance. And it's logical and right that you should repay them if you get the chance.
I'd agree with that. There's a similar expression, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. How do you say scratch in Spanish?
Rascar.
Rascar, yeah.
Tú rascas mi espalda, yo rascaré tu espalda.
Yeah. So if you do me a favour, I'll do you a favour.
Because, of course, it's difficult to scratch your own back. It's difficult to get your hand there. So if someone does it for you, you can do it for them.
But that's an idiom you could use if somebody asks you to do a favour. Like, can you lend me 50 euros? Well, I need somebody to help me clean my car. So I'll lend you 50 euros if you help me clean my car. So you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. You do something for me and I'll return the favour.
I don't think there's anything bad about that, as long as you don't always live by that motto. I think sometimes if someone asks you a favour, you should just do it. And to say you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours should be reserved for when you really do need help in return for your help. But otherwise, I don't think you should exploit the other person. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. Have you seen the film Pay It Forward, which in Spanish is Cadena de Favores?
No, I haven't seen it.
It speaks about the idea that if somebody does you a big favour, then you pay it forward and do another big favour for somebody else. And that way makes the world a better place, which is, it's a good film and a very nice concept, a very nice idea.
I like the idea as well, yeah. Because I think you reap what you sow is an expression related to all this. To reap is cosechar and sow is sembrar. Cosechas lo que sembras. Mm-hmm. You reap what you sow. If you're good to other people, generally you'll get good things back from other people.
I definitely agree with that. And have you recently done somebody a favour, done a good deed? If you have a similar story to tell us, we would love to hear from you. So let us know when the last time was that you helped someone. Why not record your voice, tell us the story, and practice and improve your speaking, and maybe we'll include it in a future podcast. Your voice messages are sent via SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Or, as Jose did, you could send us your sound file, your MP3 file, by email to me, Craig, at inglespodcast.com.
Or to me, belfastreza@gmail.com.
And before we go, a thank you to Bruno, our gold sponsor on Patreon, who is offering walking tours of 2 cities. There's Copenhagen at copenhagenwalkingtour.com, where you can get to know the city with an English or Spanish guide and see the lovely castles. Or you could take Bruno's walking tour of Rio in the favela neighborhood, which is a very safe and altruistic tour because the money goes back into the community and the local guides will take you around and show you the area. And to find that walking tour, if you're thinking of going to Rio, is favelawalkingtour.com/BR. And thanks, Bruno, for your support.
As well as Bruno, our gold sponsor, we'd like to thank all our Patreon sponsors. They are Ana, Dana, Pachi, Manuel Tarazona, Juan Carlos Rodado, Beatriz, Pedro, Maite, Lara, Rafa Bancells, Nestor Garcia Mañez from nestorgm.com, that's Luces Extrañas website, Maria, Lorena, Sara Jarabo, Carlos Garrido, Mamen, Juan Leiva, Corey Finneran from ivnv.com, Miren, Jose Luis Arregui, Agus, Mariel, Manuel García Betegón, Raúl López, Rafael, José Manuel Fernández Picazo, Pilar, Gambate Blog, Igor, Ignacio, Kieran, Carlos, Ana Ibarra, Marina Ortiz Pena, and our most recent patrons, who are Juan Carlos Pantin Fernandez, Joel Silvera, Alejandro Pluma, Alex Cuadra, José Emilio Villano, Emilio Manuel Martínez Rivas, Antonio, Jose Antonio Muñoz, and lastly, Esperanza Colmenero. Thanks very much to all of you.
Yes, thank you. For only $1 per month, or more if you'd like to, you can join that illustrious list of alcoholics and supporters of the show, and also get access to recent transcriptions that have been lovingly transcribed by Angelica Bello from Madrid. The address for that is patreon.com/Ingles podcast. Also, a big thank you to Patricia Alonso. Thank you, Patricia, who is continually working hard transcribing episodes from the very beginning. We now have episodes 1 to 20 and 131 to 142 available on our website. What's next week, Reza?
Next week is one of my favorite topics, beer.
So why not sit back in your favorite chair, pour yourself a nice beer or a glass of wine, and enjoy next week's podcast with us. Until then, it's goodbye from Reza.
And cheers from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts, and the track is called See You Later.